of $3,000 will be paid to the terrifying, the deadly, the amazing Spider-Man!
Hello and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Maverick, Dren, Zaria. This week, we are taking a look at the film Spider-Man from 2002.
I'm surprised you didn't start this off with Bonesaw's ready.
Bonesaw is ready!
Oh boy. Now, okay, so I need to talk about something. We originally were going to do a podcast on Cyborg, since it's sort of a sequel to Masters of the Universe. But it took so long to get around to doing the awards show, like setting it up and shit, that by the time we actually recorded it and decided our next movies for the podcast, I really didn't feel like doing it, because
Yeah.
it's fucking... I mean, Cyborg, and Cyborg has sequels as well. That didn't really excite me as much. I mean, maybe we'll do it eventually. Who knows? For those disappointed that we won't be covering it...
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Okay. So instead, we're doing Spider-Man. I mean, because...
So we decided we finally wanted to do a good movie again. It's been a while.
Yeah. So Spider-Man was released in May of 2002. Oh my god. This movie's over 20 years old now.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I was like, what? I think I was like 3. No, I was 2. I was 2 when... Was I 3? How old am I right now? I was 2 years old.
Yep, same here. And this was not the first attempt to make a theatrical Spider-Man movie, because Canon tried making one in the 80s, but due to money problems...
There was a Japanese...
There were money problems, and it never got made. And also, from what I've read, they didn't understand the source material, because they thought he was a were-spider. He gets turned into a giant spider in, like, a lab experiment or something by Doc Ock, so I'm like, okay, what? And to be fair, these are the same people that did Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, so I don't expect them to get...
So it probably wouldn't have turned out great.
I don't expect them to get a superhero movie right off of that. James Cameron tried making an R-rated Spider-Man movie in the 90s, but that didn't go anywhere. I think it was a similar case where, like, the production company, like, went bankrupt. Because I think it was a Carol Co. movie. So, well, that, and also, his Spider-Man script was weird. I don't know how much you know about...
I haven't really heard anything about it, I don't think.
Okay, because apparently, okay, basically what we missed out on Spider-Man dropping F-bombs and...
Nice, that's what I want in my Spider-Man movie.
And having sex with Mary Jane on a giant web on top of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Nice. Nice.
I do remember reading this script once, but I don't remember much of it aside from it was weird. I can see why it didn't get made. And do we really need an R-rated Spider-Man movie? I mean, we already have Deadpool.
Yeah. Although I guess that wouldn't come out for quite a while later.
Okay, Spider-Man cost... Okay, so eventually they did finally make the movie, and it got released in 2002. It cost $139 million and made almost $826 million.
Ooh.
It was the third highest-grossing film of 2002, behind Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
That's a busy year.
Some stiff competition. I also like to point out, Attack of the Clones came out the same year, so...
That's a busy year. Men in Black 2 came out that
Die
year.
Another Day came out
Ice
that year.
Age came out that year. Signs came out that year.
Is Ice Age really that old now? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This movie was directed by Sam Raimi, which he's been...
Welcome back to the podcast.
This is his 5th time on our podcast. Because we did the Evil Dead movies and Dark Man. And once we get through with the next 2 movies, he's gonna beat Ridley Scott for the director we've had the most times. It was written by David Kapp. He wrote the first 2 Jurassic Park movies.
Okay.
And Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Among others. It's a long filmography.
He's got a credit for Dial of Destiny as well.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that he had to do. Maybe he came up with the time travel. I don't know. The cast, which I am baffled that we haven't had some of these people yet.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire, which most people know from this. I mean...
Yeah.
Although he's also in Cider House Rules, Pleasantville.
He was Nick in the Gatsby movie.
Right, Nick Carraway. The last movie I watched that he was in was... there was this god-awful movie called The Details. I was glad to watch this, because I'm like, now I can finally kill that thing from my memory.
And I can't believe you haven't mentioned his most important
He's in Fear and
role.
Loathing in Las Vegas. I just remembered that.
I was about to say The Wizard.
The Wizard. I forgot he was in that. Does he even have any lines in that?
I don't remember if he does, but he stands there.
I feel like it was just one of those, like...
Because he's one of the henchmen of the kid with the power glove.
Oh, what the hell was that? Yeah. I love the power glove. It's so
Power
bad.
glove. It's so bad.
What was the name of the kid with the power glove again? I don't remember.
Lucas, I think.
Lucas. Right. You know what? The Wizard was not a good movie, but it was better than The Details. It was more watchable.
Yeah.
I'll give it that. The one I am shocked we haven't had him yet. One of my favorite actors, Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
How have we not done a Willem Dafoe movie yet?
It's shocking. We are over 100 episodes, and this is our first time hitting Willem Dafoe.
That's crazy to me, because I fucking love Willem Dafoe. So. And his filmography, I forget how massive his filmography is, too. Like,
yeah.
He's in Platoon, he's in Last Temptation of Christ.
He's in Wild at Heart.
Wild at Heart, The Boondock Saints, Finding Nemo. He played Vincent Van Gogh in At Eternity's Gate, which that's a movie more people should see. That's a good movie there. He's in a lot of Lars von Trier movies. Like, he's just been in so much. It's insane.
I think his recent big one was The Lighthouse.
Right, yeah, he was in that. That was a good movie. Very, very weird. But, yeah. He was good in that. James Franco, which, surprisingly, we've had him before. Because he had a very, very minor role in Alien Covenant.
Oh.
Where he dies off screen, and then they play, like, a video transmission of him after he's dead. Like,
yeah, I don't remember that.
I'm not surprised. He played Tommy Wiseau in The Disaster Artist.
Yep.
Sorry, correction. He got possessed by Tommy Wiseau and then made a movie. But yeah, I think most people know who James Franco is. Did a bunch of movies with Seth Rogen. Haven't heard much about him recently. I wonder why.
Yeah, let's skip over that.
We got Kirsten Dunst, who was in Jumanji.
Yep.
I'm always like caught off guard though by the fact that she's not a natural redhead. Because I'm so used to watching these movies, but then I see her in something else, and she doesn't have red hair, so I'm like, anyway. Another returning actor, Cliff Robertson.
Yep.
He played the president in Escape from L.A.
Yep.
And he also played JFK in a movie about his Navy days called PT-109, even though he looks nothing like JFK. Another one that I'm just baffled we haven't had, J.K. Simmons. How have...
Have we not had him yet?
I don't think so, no. And he has a long filmography.
That one actually surprises me. Yeah, he's been in, like, everything. He's even in the Postal movie.
Oh, jeez. Why'd you have to bring that up? I can't believe he was in that. He's also in the Cider House Rules, actually.
Huh.
Whiplash. He was in Whiplash.
Yep.
Which he's really good in that movie, actually. As a really abusive music teacher. I forgot he was in Megamind. He played the prison warden in Megamind. I forgot about that. I thought you were going to mention Cave Johnson or something.
Oh, dude, okay, he's been in so much. Yeah, he was Cave Johnson in the Portal games, and I think he's been in a couple other... Yeah, he was the president in Command and Conquer Red Alert 3.
I forgot he was in Terminator Genesis.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I think that was like one of the only parts of Terminator Genesis that made that movie watchable, was that J.K. Simmons showed up for like 10 minutes. Stole the show. But anyway, yeah, he's been in a lot of things.
And definitely the highlight of his career, he played the yellow M&M.
In what? Like commercials?
M&M's? I think he was in the commercials, but he played him specifically in an M&M's video game from the year 2000.
Yeah, most people know him from these, J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
Bruce Campbell has a cameo in this.
Yep.
Which, we've had him a lot. Because he's in, like, every Sam Raimi movie.
And he also just happened to show up in, From Dusk Till Dawn, too.
Right. That was... I cannot tell you how surprised I was when I saw that Bruce Campbell was in that movie. And he's not even in it that much. He, like, dies in the first scene of that movie.
Yeah, because he's in, like, some sort of weird movie about vampire bats.
Anyway. There's a few other
Ted
cameos.
Raimi makes a cameo.
There's a few other cameos I want to mention, including, Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah!
Bonesaw. And I didn't realize this until reading later. Lucy Lawless is in this.
Where?
I'll mention that later, but I was like reading through the cast. I like looked it up. I'm like, oh, yep, I remember that part. We had her in Hercules and Xena, the animated movie, where she played Xena. I'll say this is a better animated movie than that one. So. Okay. Initial thoughts. I guess I'll start. Now, this is a movie I've seen a lot of times. And actually, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie. Now, I saw it at a very young age. Basically became obsessed with Spider-Man because of it. I don't know if we've mentioned this on podcast before, but as a kid, Spider-Man was my favorite superhero. And I do like Batman, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Nowadays, I would say they're tied. Like, I like both of them for different reasons, but as a kid, I definitely related more to Spider-Man. Because he was an awkward kid that got bullied a lot. Now, if only I'd been bitten by a radioactive spider and gotten superpowers back then, that would have helped a bit. But, like, basically, as a kid during recess, if I wasn't pretending to be a Star Wars character, I was pretending to be Spider-Man. So I have a lot of fond memories of this movie. Like, I literally remember the first image I saw of the movie. I was over at somebody else's house, and they were showing the DVD menu of him swinging through the city, which I thought looked really cool. Imagine that, like, just all it took for me to get interested in Spider-Man was the fucking DVD menu for the first movie.
I mean, hey, there's some pretty good DVD menus out there, like those Star Wars DVD menus.
Yeah, the Star Wars DVD menus are also really cool. That was back when they put effort into the, like, menus for, like, DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. And I think this might have been... It was one of the first superhero movies I saw. I think I saw The Incredibles before I saw this. But again, I can't remember the exact age. I do have one funny story. I remember going to Max's birthday party once. I was probably 6 or 7 at the time. They had 2 TVs set up. One was playing the entire Spider-Man movie.
Okay.
And the other was him just using a remote to skip to the highlights of the first Spider-Man movie. Which I thought that's interesting. I think it was also the first PG-13 movie I ever saw. And again, there's always a part of me, like, revisiting a movie I liked as a kid. Like, there's a part of me that goes, maybe parts of it, maybe it won't hold up as well as I think it will. It's kind of funny watching this now and realizing just how much of an early 2000s movie it is.
Yeah.
Because you look at this, compare it to, like, superhero movies nowadays, like, just the fact they don't really have cell phones in this is kind of different.
Yeah. And everything from, like, the clothes and the style that everyone wore to even, I feel like, the way New York is portrayed, especially just considering when the movie came out.
And the way it's shot, too. Like, it definitely feels very much... I mean, this movie's so early 2000s. One of the songs on the soundtrack is by the lead singer of Nickelback.
I forgot about that.
It plays over the end credits.
Yeah.
It's very interesting seeing, like... Because really, you look at before this, the superhero genre was kind of dead again. It had a little bit of a high point with, like the Superman movies and until they didn't. And then the Batman movies until they didn't. I think it's a good movie. It is very campy.
Yeah.
Especially if you compare it to, like, a lot of the stuff that gets made nowadays, which is, like, super serious and dark. But I think it's a good movie. It's well made. I think what helps is the actors were very well cast for this movie.
Yeah.
Like, across the board, they're all very good, with maybe a few exceptions. But, like, the main characters, I think they definitely got right. And also, what sets us apart is Sam Raimi's style, which I think fits the movie very well.
Yes, and we'll definitely be getting into that a bit more later, but it is just...
It's very different from what you usually get in a superhero movie, and I think it works pretty well.
Oh, yeah. Especially compared to nowadays, where superhero movies are just so corporate.
Yeah, they look kind of like they got churned out of a factory or something.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect movie, but I think it's fun. It's well made. Eventually we will get to my favorite Spider-Man movie. But this one's a pretty good movie. And for being a superhero movie from the early 2000s, it's pretty good too, because the superhero movies from that time period are mostly just fucking horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm surprised the late 90s didn't, like, kill superhero movies. Because you had, like, Batman and Robin, Spawn, Steel, like, just some of that stuff just bordered on unwatchable. And then you get this, and you're like, wow, a good superhero movie. And it's a good Spider-Man movie, too, we haven't had a Spider-Man movie since, like, the 70s.
And even beyond that, it's just a good movie. I mean...
Sorry, you can get to your initial thoughts. I kind of went on a long time there.
So, I definitely grew up alongside this movie, kind of, but more so the second movie is what I have, more memories of. But I do remember watching this a few times when I was younger. It has been a little while since I've actually watched these, at least a couple years. I have this one on VHS.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen that VHS, like, the back of it. It's, like, the upside-down rain kiss.
Yeah. And somewhere, I'll have to see if I can find this. There is a picture of me on a floppy disk that I found. It was a Spider-Man floppy disk, and it was a picture of me standing next to a Spider-Man cutout as, like, a really tiny kid. So I'll have to see if I can find that. But
you could probably find tons of pictures of me as a kid, like dressed as Spider-Man, or like I used to have a Spider-Man costume actually, or like I had like a Spider-Man shirt with like Spider-Man and Sandman on it, but you know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna tell that story right now. I'll tell that story when we get to Spider-Man 3.
Okay.
Because it kind of has to do with Spider-Man 3 more than the first Spider-Man movie.
Anyway, so I kind of knew what to expect going in, but it had been just a little while since I had seen it last, and I was just. I'm always really pleasantly surprised when I watch this, because it's very well made. It's pretty fun, like you mentioned. It's kind of campy. It's just it feels nostalgic, and I think part of that is that sort of early 2000s vibe that we were talking about. I absolutely love the characterization of Peter Parker throughout the whole thing. Just this, because he is sort of relentlessly bullied, but he's also just a bit hopeless on his own. Very, very sheepish. And I feel like it helps add like a lot of sort of relatability into the character that you don't get with someone like Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he's just a kid, basically. I mean, he's just a teenager. He's not like a billionaire with a bunch of expensive toys.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's basically just my intro thoughts. It's just a very good and very well made movie. It's fun to watch.
Do you want me to make you lose some hope in humanity?
Sure.
Leonard Maltin.
Oh. No, why do you have to bring him up now?
Oh, boy. If it makes you feel better, he did like the second one. What do you want? I guess he gave the first Spider-Man.
I guess he gave it a 2.
You're close. 2.5 out of 4.
Okay.
He said, "Slick entertainment with Maguire, a likable Peter Parker, but the cartoony effects distance rather than involve us in his springy moments of action, and the story runs out of gas long before 2 hours are up." He liked Batman Forever. Fuck him. He thought Batman Forever was a better superhero.
Apparently. Well, he thinks Batman Forever is better than a lot of things.
He thinks Batman Forever is on par with Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, apparently, but better than all the other Batman movies. Okay, so the plot of this one is that a high school student named Perry Porkchop gets turned into Spider Pig. Oh, okay. No, I'm kidding.
I think you're in the wrong multiverse for that one.
Was it the Simpsons movie that I was referencing, or one of the Spider-Verse movies? I can't remember. Okay. His name's Peter Parker. He's bit by a radioactive genetically engineered spider in this movie. Okay, everybody knows who Spider-Man is, right? I mean, it's basically that, the origin story. And then he has to fight his best friend's dad, who is a scientist that gets addicted to steroids and sometimes cosplays as an evil green Power Ranger. There we go. Is that pretty accurate? Everybody got that? Okay, pros. The music, I think, is really good.
You know what I think the music sounds like?
Batman.
I was gonna say Darkman.
I think that both scores were done by Danny Elfman, I think, so yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, like, listening to this, it does kind of sound like the Batman music.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good score. I think it fits the movie. I think the opening titles look cool, too.
Yeah, and actually my first thing that I wrote down was this intro reminds me of Darkman, because there's like that intro sequence for that movie looks pretty similar to this one.
Yeah, except here you got all the webs and stuff, in the opening titles.
Yeah.
It's very stylistic. Speaking of which, Sam Raimi, his fingerprints are all over this movie.
Yes. And I think that is this movie's biggest strength.
That's what sets it apart.
Is that it is so clearly a Sam Raimi movie.
There are parts of this movie that feel like a horror movie, mostly when the Green Goblin shows up. Like, there were, like, camera transitions. There was, like, one where, like, you just see the Goblin's face, and I was just like, oh my god, that's such a Sam Raimi, like, camera transition there.
And you know what I realized?
And also the style of, like, the weird tone, too, is very Sam Raimi, where it's kind of campy and kind of, like,
almost slapsticky.
Kind of slapstick, sort of surreal at points. And again, I'm all for that, because I do enjoy Sam Raimi's work. Most of it, anyway.
You know what I realized watching this? This is one of the slowest Sam Raimi movies we've done on this podcast, and it still moves, like, really fast.
It's a well-paced movie. It has...
Yeah.
A movie is well-written and well-structured when, like, each scene builds on the scenes before it. Like, it feels like it has a reason to be there. It's kind of just screenwriting 101 right there, but, like, But, like, a movie is not well-structured when just there's scenes there and you don't know why it's there.
Yeah.
Whereas here it's like, and they're good scenes too, like, as the scenes went by, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this scene, I remember this scene.
Yeah.
It's a 2-hour movie, but it doesn't really feel too slow,
Yeah, it goes by pretty quick. It definitely keeps things moving. And I know earlier, a little bit ago, you mentioned kind of briefly that there are parts that just feel like a horror movie.
Yes.
And a lot of those are... I think, like, the first big one is when Norman is talking to himself, like, as the Goblin, when you see, like, the mask hanging there. And then later, when he's talking to himself in the mirror, that mirror scene is, like, crazy and just amazing.
Which, that's also kind of... Sam Raimi has kind of done that before, because in Evil Dead 2, there's the part where Ash is talking to himself in a mirror. It's a little different from that, but yeah, it's just like very, very strange. Which, do you want to talk about him now, or wait to talk about?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good to talk about the Goblin.
The Goblin, yes. Willem Dafoe was perfectly cast for this part. I think it helps that he even just kind of looks like a goblin when he smiles in this. So, like,
I was about to say, the only real detriment is that they have that static mask over his face. Because, like, imagine if you would have been able to get full, like, facial acting from Willem Dafoe whenever he showed up as the Goblin.
You almost don't need it, though, just because... You know, he's got a very expressive voice, and you do see his eyes through the mask sometimes, so, you know.
And I was actually wondering, so we get to see the glider and the actual, like, Goblin suit.
I like the glider.
Pretty early on in the morning. Oh, yeah.
The glider looks
But we don't
good.
see the... Yeah. But we don't see the mask there, so did Norman just make his own mask that looked like a goblin to go with the suit?
I guess. I don't know. Again, I guess he was just doing a Power Rangers villain cosplay. But yeah, his character's interesting, too, because he starts off, when you first see him, he's just dropping his son off at school. He just seems like a normal businessman.
Yeah. Something of a scientist.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself. Yeah. And then he just takes too many drugs and gets this Gollum Smeagol thing going on.
He goes absolutely batshit.
I think it's the same. Yeah, this is the same year Two Towers came out. So, you know, you had this, and you had the Gollum Smeagol stuff going on. I mean, he basically just has this split personality thing going on.
Yeah.
Where, like, he's Norman, but he's also a goblin, you know. I guess kind of like Jekyll and Hyde, now that I think about it. Jekyll and Hyde would probably be a better comparison, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Where he kind of starts using it as an excuse to get back at the people that wronged him.
Yeah.
Because he kills those, like, businessmen that were cutting his funding, basically, and that, like, were forcing him to resign.
The board, and he just disintegrates them all, they all turn into skeletons.
Yeah, I always thought that was kind of weird, like...
That's really weird, and it's really out of place, but it's really funny.
It, like, shoots this, like, gas that, like, turns them into skeletons. Yeah. That is a very Sam Raimi thing to do, though.
It is very Sam Raimi.
It's like as violent as Sam Raimi can get with just a PG-13 rating, I guess. Or no, that's not true.
No.
Multiverse of Madness exists. Multiverse of Madness
Which one?
exists.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say the Doc Ock awakening scene from the second movie was pretty...
But we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah.
And Willem Dafoe, he's one of those actors that even when he's playing, like, just really evil dudes, you still manage to feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
Because he just has this, like... He's able to bring this, like, humanity to these characters, even when they're just really psychotic, like in this movie. You know?
Yeah. Because he is going through a bit of a mental breakdown. He's losing his company. He's trying to fix his relationship with his kid by killing Spider-Man.
And then he even feels guilty about the fact he has to kill Spider-Man when he finds out who it is, too.
Yeah.
He has, like, I like how he just... when he's at that dinner scene, the minute he finds out who Spider-Man is, he just gets up and leaves. He just cannot handle it. Like,
oh, I love that dinner scene so much.
It's
because
so funny.
There's just so much. Yeah,
it's so
there's
funny.
so
it's
much
so
tension.
awkward.
Norman's acting super weird the whole time.
He's like eating the food before they're allowed to touch it. Oh my goodness. Even just the way he like grabs a piece of the turkey and just eats it, like he just does it in such a threatening way. Like, and then basically he like leaves and as he's like leaving, he's like, it's Mary Jane, Harry, and Peter are all there. He's like, as he's leaving, he like has this like argument with Harry, basically calling Mary Jane like a gold digger.
Yeah.
It just as an excuse to like he doesn't have to stay there, you know.
And I wonder if this was the inspiration for Spider-Man Homecoming, when the Vulture and Spider-Man are like in the car together taking.
Right, yeah, because he's the whole twist in that is like, oh, the Vulture, he's just some guy. He's just some guy. He's like dropping his daughter off at prom, basically.
Yeah, who's going with Spider-Man?
He's threatening Spider-Man in the backseat. Yeah.
Like, I feel like that has to be inspired, at least partially, by this scene.
I mean, yeah, maybe. It's a little bit different, though. Because Peter doesn't know who Norman is in the dinner scene.
Yeah.
Anyway. Which I think that's another thing, like, because I do like the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies quite a bit. Especially Homecoming. I thought Homecoming was really good. But I feel like with those, they didn't have that same weird style to them that Sam Raimi brought.
Yeah. Plus, it kind of hurt that you can't just watch the 3 Spider-Man movies of Tom Holland's. You also have to watch a Captain America movie and 2 Avengers movies.
True. And also, some people have kind of criticized him, saying like he's kind of just there to help Iron Man with his shit. In those movies, he kind of doesn't get to be his own like free agent. Whereas here, it's definitely a Spider-Man movie. You know, it's very much focused on Spider-Man, which we should talk about. Him, Tobey Maguire, who I think was a good casting choice for the part.
Yeah. He does a really good job as Peter Parker, just this very awkward kid. Doesn't quite fit in anywhere.
Yeah. I found him very relatable when I was younger.
Yeah.
With a lot of what I was going through. And even though he has powers, he makes mistakes. I mean, he's not perfect.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I love this as a superhero origin film.
It's a very good origin story.
Because it feels very sort of grounded, because it's a high school kid who suddenly gets all of these superpowers.
As grounded as you can get for a campy superhero movie.
Yeah. But like what I was about to say is he's this high school kid. He gets superpowers, and so his first idea to get money is to enter in a wrestling match.
Oh god, yeah, that scene. That's yeah, he's like, and not only that, he's trying to buy a car to just impress the girl next door.
Yeah.
It's like he's kind of just being an idiot. I mean, like
he's being like what a high schooler would be if they suddenly had Spider-Man powers.
Yeah, the wrestling. Oh my goodness, this scene. If any other scene dates this movie more. Because you got Bonesaw McGraw, played by Macho Man Randy
Savage.
What kind of a name is Bonesaw? I mean... And then you got Bruce Campbell, who...
as the announcer who names Spider-Man.
Because Spider-Man, he Peter calls himself the human spider, and he's just wearing...
Yeah.
Okay, his costume at this point, it's just one of those, like, turtleneck masks and, like, a red one, and just a red shirt. Like, it's not a very...
complex suit.
And everybody's making fun of him because he's just this high schooler, like, just trying to enter a wrestling match for money. And Bruce Campbell's like chastising. Bruce Campbell makes fun of the name Human Spider. He's like saying, "Oh, that name sucks."
Terrible name.
And he calls him. Then that's apparently Bruce Campbell is the guy that gave Spider-Man his name, which I'm like, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, that scene is just so fucking ridiculous.
And one other thing that I was thinking of with that, so Spider-Man's first public appearance is at this wrestling match.
Yeah, somebody
Do you
had
think
to have seen
any of
that.
the people? Do you think any of the people who watched that wrestling match a few weeks later were like, "Wait a minute, why is this guy fighting crime now?"
Yeah, I don't know how like official of a thing this. I guess it was official enough to get an ad in the newspaper.
Yeah, and there was quite a few people in the audience.
And I mean, it was announced by Bruce Campbell, and the wrestler was Macho Man Randy Savage. So, I mean,
and hold on. He also took off his mask to go talk to the guy that was supposed to pay him. So that guy theoretically knows who Spider-Man is.
Yeah, that's also a good point. You would think somebody, well, they also got their money stolen, and like there were some shady things. You know what? There were some shady things going on there. Maybe they just didn't want to draw attention. Maybe they didn't want to draw attention to some of the stuff going on there.
And as you mentioned earlier with him making mistakes, right after that wrestling match, when his Uncle Ben gets shot, he actually hunts down the guy and sort of, not intentionally, but basically ends up killing the guy. And it feels just really sort of, I used this word earlier, but almost sort of grounded, where all of a sudden he has these powers, he's been wronged, and so he wants to try and strike back at the person, which leads to this.
You're missing a very important thing here also, is that earlier in the movie he had, well, most people probably know about this scene, the conversation with Uncle Ben in the car.
Yep.
Where he's talking to Uncle Ben, and he says,
"Remember, with great power comes great responsibility."
That's the moment where he finds out what that means, which also is, part of it is also because he let the guy go earlier. He could have stopped the robber earlier, and then that robber ends up killing Uncle Ben. So it's almost like Uncle Ben was like, psychic or something. Like,
yeah, just foreshadowing his own death.
Yeah. And it's really sad when Uncle Ben dies, too, because you can tell that he really cares about Peter Parker. It's just he's a moody teenager, so he doesn't fully appreciate, his uniform. And also the fact that, obviously he lost his parents at a young age, so that can't have helped either. Is there anything else we need to cover with that, or...
There is actually one other thing that I would sort of like to mention that kind of bridges the gap between Spider-Man and the Goblin. Because both of their stories really sort of mirror each other in a way. Like, they become, Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man and Norman becomes the Goblin on the same night. And
why does that happen so much in these? Like, that seems to happen a lot with like superhero movies, but...
And so Peter gets his powers, and he tries to do a wrestling match.
They both get their powers. Another thing worth pointing out: they both get their powers from genetic enhancements too. So there's that, obviously.
And so Peter starts off making very selfish decisions with these powers. You know, he fights Flash Thompson at school, does the wrestling match.
Oh
gets
god, yeah,
revenge.
the fight scene. That was another scene where I was like, how did nobody, like... Did everybody just forget about that scene or something?
Oh, that one's funny just because of the, I don't want to fight you, Flash. I wouldn't want to fight me neither.
I wouldn't want to fight me neither, yeah. Which I'll talk about. Sorry.
Yeah. But then you have the Goblin, who starts off doing very selfish things. He kills the people that were trying to cut his funding. He kills the scientists that, brought up the issues with the treatment. And then he keeps, like, almost spiraling down into his selfishness, because then he kills the whole board. He's trying to kill Spider-Man eventually.
Basically, they're just they're both taking advantage of their powers to, like, use them for selfish reasons rather than to help people.
But then the difference is then Spider-Man learns that he needs to be selfless with these. Sort of like what Uncle Ben said.
With great power comes great responsibility. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Hell, that might have even been the tagline of the movie, for all I know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
What was the tagline for this movie?
I don't know. I mean, do you need one? I mean, it's fucking Spider-Man. It's like, it kind of sells itself.
Was that the tagline? It's fucking Spider-Man?
Oh, man. I know there's some posters that have the Twin Towers on them.
Yeah, those ones got pulled. Can't imagine why. Oh, there's Do You Want to Know Who I Am? I'm Spider-Man.
I don't know if you remember that. There was like a trailer where he, like... There's this helicopter with these robbers in it, and he, like, catches them in a web, and the web is stuck between the two towers.
Oh, I did not see that.
It was, well, obviously they didn't show it that often after. You can see the towers, actually, in a few background shots of this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was the tagline for it? Did you find that?
It was With Great Power Comes Great Responsibility.
Yeah, I figured. I mean, that's Spider-Man. It's the most famous Spider-Man quote, and he didn't even say it. It was Uncle Ben that said it.
Yeah.
Which, Uncle Ben and Aunt May, they're well cast as well, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Cliff Robertson and Rosemary Harris, they do a good job in this.
I like Aunt May, because it feels like she's, like, everybody's grandma in this. Because, like, she even, like, hits away Norman's hand when he's trying to get the turkey early.
Oh my god, the scene where the goblin, like, attacks her and she's, like, reciting a prayer.
Yeah,
he's, Lord's like, yelling at her to finish it! Finish it! Because that's another thing about Spider-Man, is he was Peter Parker, he was mostly raised by his aunt and uncle rather than his parents. Because his parents died in a plane crash, if I remember right. So they're kind of under this pressure to, like, be his
parents, almost
parental figures, basically.
Yeah.
Which again is like really, they really write that home in the scene with Uncle Ben. Yeah.
I don't mean to lecture, and I don't mean to preach, and I know I'm not your father.
Then stop pretending to be.
He ends up really regretting that later, obviously.
Yeah. Because the next time he sees his uncles after he's been shot.
Poor Uncle Ben. He's always getting... Can there, for once, can there be, like, a Spider-Man movie where Uncle Ben survives? I mean...
Survives. Okay. I was about to say, he doesn't technically die in the Tom Holland movies. He died before them.
I don't think... He's not even in them. I don't even know if they mention him, actually. They do very briefly. There's, like, a piece of luggage that Peter takes that used to belong to Uncle Ben. Oh, okay. Yeah, you mentioned that. And like we said earlier, this does a good job of handling the origin stories
Yeah.
For both Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. Like, it doesn't feel, like, unbalanced or anything, you know? Like, that was something I noticed, like, watching this again, is, like, there's kind of just a small cast of characters in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it feels a little more intimate and, like, smaller scale than superhero movies tend to be nowadays, where they feel more like ensemble.
Like, try to
things.
follow all the characters that are in No Way Home, for example.
You gotta watch, like, 10 movies just to know what's
You have
going
to watch
on in the
the
MCU
5
stuff.
other Spider-Mans before the Tom Holland one. Then you gotta watch a Captain America movie, 2 Avengers movies, and then
We get
another
it.
Tom Holland Spider-Man movie.
But it's like, it's this very small cast of characters, and it was kind of a breath of fresh air, you know? It doesn't feel overstuffed. It feels focused, you know, the narrative. Like, it's a very tightly written and constructed movie, which I like. And, you know, sometimes that's all you need. You just need, like, a good story structure, you know? I was found the cafeteria scene funny, how, like, Mary Jane, like, slips and almost drops her tray, like, and then Peter catches her, and the food just lands perfectly on her plate. It's just so funny to me.
So I've read trivia about that scene before where they did that without using any CG.
It took like hundreds of takes.
100-some takes, yeah.
It's ridiculous. Or the part where I like the part where he climbs the wall for the first time. He like sees like the stuff like growing on his hands, and he's just, you know, climbing up the wall. I remember as a kid like looking at my hands and going, "Why can't I have those?"
I also like when he's trying to test out shooting the webs from his hands, and he's doing the different like hands with different like catchphrases.
Fly
Shazam.
up and away, web. It's again another scene that tells you, yeah, he's a kid. You know, he's still learning. I think the costumes are pretty good in this too.
Yeah,
especially the Spider-Man costume. Like, I mean, when I think of like Spider-Man, this is the costume I imagine, because I think they basically got it right. I mean, because in the other Spider-Man movies, they added weird gadgets to it, and like
where it's more of like a piece of technology instead of just
the eyes look kind of strange, whereas here it's just spandex basically. I mean, much better than the human spider costume, which that one sucked.
Why didn't we get that for the whole film?
Oh my god. That looks more like it'd be like a shitty cosplay of Daredevil or something, rather than Spider-Man. Or the Crimson Bolt. Like, why did Spider-Man run around smacking criminals with a wrench and shouting, "Shut up, crime"? And I know a lot of people make fun of the Green Goblin costume, but I actually kind of like it in this.
It looks cool, but I do wish we could have gotten to see more of Willem Dafoe's face whenever he was the Goblin.
It's more like, I know a lot of people make fun of like the mask, like they think it looks kind of silly, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to do a Green Goblin costume. To be fair. Although I know the original costume... Here, let me look for it. It looked a little more goblin-like, to be fair, but they didn't end up using it for the movie.
I still want to know why he decided he was going to become a goblin.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people always compare the costume they actually used in the movie to, like, Power Rangers or something. But I don't know. I think they did reject the other one. I think they rejected the other one because it was just a little too scary. Maybe, but I don't know. Sorry, did you say something?
Yeah, I was just trying to look and see if I could find that. Someone said that it looks like the mask that was used in the movie looks like the Jet Jaguar mask from from Godzilla.
It does look like Jet Jaguar, yes, it does. Or like Inframan or something, which we'll do Inframan. We're gonna do Inframan at some point soon, but yeah. But I don't know. I don't mind the costuming as. Can we talk about J. Jonah Jameson?
Yes, that was like absolute perfect casting. I think more than any other character in this film. J. Jonah Jameson was cast perfect.
My only problem with J. Jonah Jameson in this movie is that I think he's underused.
Yes. Which they kind of fix in the sequels.
He gets a lot more to do in 2 and 3, but yeah, he shows up at this and he's hilarious. I love him.
It's like J.K. Simmons was like born to play that role.
But yeah, he's basically just playing like a really shitty like journalist. Like he runs like the Daily Bugle and he's like always writing like really. He's always writing really slanderous headlines. Or, sorry, libel.
Libelous.
This movie taught me the difference between slander and libel. Which I have a funny story about that. I in college, I was in a class and somebody, like, misused the terms. Like, they said slander when they meant libel, and then I quoted this movie. I like said, I resent that. Slander is spoken in print, it's libel. And then my teacher asked if I was studying law. and then I said no. It was a quote from Spider-Man, and everybody in the room laughed just because, I mean... I wasn't sure if anybody got the reference or not, but until I said that. But I just found it so funny that I actually managed to
find a use for it, yeah.
In an appropriate context, yeah. But yeah, J.K. Simmons, he's perfect as J. Jonah Jameson. He's so funny in those. Just the asshole boss, like who also writes like basically tabloid journalism.
Yeah.
So, like, Peter has to, like, get pictures of Spider-Man, but then he's writing these, like, headlines, like, oh, he's a menace, or stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
We'll have more to talk about with him in the other 2 movies, but one thing I do find interesting is that he actually defends Peter in one scene.
He does, and that seems really interesting.
Because the Green Goblin shows up and he's like trying to choke Jameson for information. He's like asking who takes the pictures of Spider-Man, and Jameson says he doesn't know, that it just comes in the mail, which is obviously not true, you know?
Yeah.
So even though he's like an asshole, that doesn't seem like he actually cares about.
He still does have integrity.
Yeah, that was kind of a nice scene, actually.
Yeah.
It was nice that they actually threw that in there to give him a little more, like, humanity and not have him just be like, you know.
We can get a picture of Julia Roberts in a thong. We can certainly get a picture of this weirdo. Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
I also thought it was interesting, sort of how MJ's used in this movie. Because it feels very different than how you would use the main love interest in, like, a modern superhero movie.
She's just the neighbor girl who goes to school with Peter Parker, and, you know.
And, like, she has her own life that she lives. For, like, most of the times we see her, she's either, like, just coming out of her parents' house when they're having a dispute. She's, like, at work and stuff.
She just seems like a normal person, you know? She doesn't seem, like, overly idealized or, like, you know, anything like that, so.
Because it feels like with a lot of modern superhero movies, it's, like, the love interest is, like, right by the side of the main character, like, 90% of the time. it's sort of refreshing to see it, because it's like, it feels like she's her own character with her own like goals and purpose in life that exist outside of Spider-Man.
Yeah, what I liked actually was the ending, because they don't actually get together at the end.
Yeah.
Which I kind of liked, because you'd expect them to just, become a thing in this movie, but I like that they kind of just didn't do that. I feel like it would have just been too predictable or too cheesy if they had, but no, it's like, it's kind of a reverse thing, like, because the whole movie, Peter's trying to get her to fall in love with him, and she's like kind of just there, she's kind of just ignoring him, but then at the end of the movie, she says she loves him, but he's like, oh shit, like, I don't want to put her in danger or anything, so he says he basically friend zones her at the end of the movie. At a funeral too, it's just like, oh my god, but you can understand why he does it though. It's like, and it shows some growth with the two characters too. Like, it shows that they like,
especially with Peter, I feel,
because he starts off the movie like selfishly pursuing her, but then at the end of the movie he realized, it would probably be better if I didn't go for it right now. It's kind of
because there's a couple of reasons too, because it's like, you'd be putting her in danger, but also, Harry is right there mourning the loss of his father. Hooking up with his ex at the funeral would just be a shitty thing to do.
That's also a really good point, yeah. But yeah, it also helped to make their relationship feel more realistic too.
Yeah.
Because it also gave it a more natural progression. It didn't make it feel rushed or like forced or anything. It was kind of nice that they just took their time to get them together in these movies, which I liked. Although she does spend most of the movie in love with Spider-Man, including kissing him upside down in the rain, which... That's a very memorable image right there. I know a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even Shrek 2 referenced it.
I forgot about that. Well, Shrek 2 references like everything.
And that's a good point, yeah.
So does Shrek 1. Is there a Matrix reference in Shrek 1?
There is, yeah, where Fiona's fighting like Robin Hood and his merry men in the woods. Yeah, the upside down rain kiss, a lot of people have brought that up. And what's funny is it was actually raining a lot the day I rewatched this, so I'm like, oh
yeah.
Got to that scene, I'm like, oh, there we go, perfect. Fitting day to be watching this. I also just, another thing about that scene I find funny, I don't know if you've seen Tropic Thunder or not, but one of the fake trailers for Tropic Thunder, Tobey Maguire is in one of the trailers as a cameo.
Okay.
And he's introduced as the winner of the MTV Movie Award for Best Kiss. for obviously for this movie, which I just find that so funny. Like, because they have like 5-time Academy Award winner Kirk Lazarus, MTV Movie Award for Best Kiss winner Tobey Maguire. The pumpkin bombs, I think, look pretty cool.
Yeah. And there's like a couple different ones. There's some of them that explode, some of them that turn you into a skeleton. There's one that has like blades that comes out.
Oh yeah, the ones, oh my god, yeah, the scene with like he's fighting Spider-Man in a burning building, and like he's shooting the flying ones at him and they cut him. Yeah, that's a very iconic scene right there.
And actually...
one of the scenes that always stuck with me, though, was, like, the parade scene.
Yeah, when the Goblin has his first big attack.
I can literally remember, like, walking through a Walmart, and they were playing that part on the TV outside of, like, a hair salon or something.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought this scene was, like, the coolest thing ever. Because he got this guy on this glider, and he's, like, fighting Spider-Man and stuff, yeah. Where I watch it now and it looks so cartoony.
Yeah, it's so slapsticky.
It's just kind of funny, like seeing like, you know, but for some reason that scene always left a huge impression on me. I guess
I will say
he
one
like
detail that I
punches
never
through the
noticed.
glider to like
Yeah.
grab some of the parts out of it. I like that part.
One detail that I never noticed in this scene. So MJ's on like, that balcony that's like falling down.
She's wearing like a Japanese dress or something.
Yeah, but if you look carefully, there's like a statue right underneath that looks like it's holding up the balcony, and like as its arm falls down, that's when MJ falls down. So it's like the statue's dropping her. Just like a cool small little detail.
That's interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, he saves Mary Jane during that part. He like sets her down on like a lawn somewhere, and there's like sprinklers or something. There's like another couple over there, and these is like the line does. Yeah.
She'll just need to take the elevator.
Or maybe were there sprinklers in that scene, or am I just remember?
I don't think there were sprinklers. I think it was just like a rooftop garden.
It's because I remember as a kid, like, reenacting that scene and, like, the sprinklers were going off in the yard. That's why I was thinking of sprinklers. Okay. You can tell I really liked Spider-Man as a kid. Okay, so Lucy Lawless, her cameo, that we mentioned earlier, she's, the scene where they're interviewing people on the street?
Oh, yeah.
And there's that one chick who looks kind of emo or like punk rock.
That was Lucy Lawless, the one that was like, he has 8 arms?
She's the one that says about Spider-Man, guy with 8 hands. Sounds hot.
Huh. I didn't catch that.
I didn't know it was Lucy Lawless until I like looked it up. I'm like, oh, that was her. Wow, really? Huh. It was a funny line too. I thought so. I always get the Daily Bugle and the Daily Planet mixed up.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's the rooftop scene with Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, which is basically just that scene from The Dark Knight. Where he's like, we're one and the same, and when the people don't need you anymore, they'll like, get rid of you or something. I love that fucking scene. It's kind of ridiculous. They're just like, he's just taunting him while wearing this costume.
Yeah.
I could squash you like a bug right now.
I love every time the Goblin tries to go after Spider-Man, because it's always just so... Like, it starts off kind of menacing, but at a certain point it just gets goofy, like when the building's on fire. And he puts on a shawl so that it looks like he's an old woman from behind.
So, what about my generous proposal? Yeah, there's a lot of scenes. Again, it's kind of just Sam Raimi's over-the-top style, and then you got Willem Dafoe's, like, crazy performance as well. Maybe he was channeling Bruce Campbell during parts of this movie.
Oh, he might have been.
There's just a lot. There's just a lot of memorable shots and quotes in this movie. A lot of which we probably didn't even mention, but like, it seems like a lot of them were just ones from the Green Goblin. I remember a lot of Green Goblin quotes from this movie.
I love the scene when...
Think about it, hero! He kind of sounds like Skeletor during some parts of this movie.
Yeah. I love when he first, like, wakes up as the Goblin, like, coming out of the chamber. Just all of his, like, quick zooms and close-ups onto his face.
Back to formula. That's formula. Yeah. That was a good scene. Because he, like, gets super, like... You wonder if he's, like, dead at first, but he just, like, got, like, super strong. Yeah, that like, pose he does as he jumps out of the...
He looks like a goblin.
He does, yeah. You can definitely see why Willem Dafoe was cast. It always made me wonder, like, why he was never cast as a Batman villain, because
Yeah, no, he would be a great Batman villain.
I think he'd be perfect as, like, the Joker, or
Yeah.
honestly, I'd love to see him as, like, Two-Face or something.
I think he'd be a pretty good Riddler.
The Riddle, yeah, maybe. Or the Penguin.
He'd do great as a lot of Batman villains, actually.
He's just like, you just watch him in like any movie and you wonder, why was he never a Batman villain? I think he was considered to play the Joker at one point, but I guess that is never happened. Like same with Tim Curry, you just wonder like, why is he never cast as a Batman villain? He got close, I think, in the animated series to playing the Joker. The bridge scene. I always found it kind of funny how the New York citizens just start to pick on the Green Goblin.
Yeah, they like start throwing stuff.
You mess with New York, you mess with all of us.
You mess with all of us.
It's so funny, yeah. Although I feel like that scene probably could have been pulled off a little bit because he's like. Green Goblin's kind of trying to do the whole, like, it's sort of a trolley problem that he's got, where he's, like, holding the
kids in the school bus on one side and then MJ on the other.
The woman you love, or suffer the children, you know, or something. Suffer the little children, or something like that. Maybe at the time it was super intense, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just the movie. I don't know. That part of the movie, it's just kind of like, well, of course he's gonna fucking save both of them. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not gonna kill Mary Jane in the first movie. I mean, I feel like people would be really mad if that happened.
Yeah.
I really like the final fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. Because they're just fighting around in, like, the dirt and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because it's a little grittier than some of the other fights in the movie. Because a lot of the other fights, it's them flying around and swinging around. Yeah. It looks kind of cartoony, but here it looks, like, really,
and
like,
Spider-Man gets, like,
dirty.
hurt. His, like, mask is ripped open. He's, like, bleeding everywhere.
That's another thing. Spider-Man, like, gets really, like... He gets a lot of cuts in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, on his arm, and, like, his mask gets, like, part of his mask comes off during that scene. And the Green Goblin gets, like, really beat up during that scene, too. Like, he has to...
Yeah. Well, he got stabbed with his glider, so...
Oh, yeah, that's... Yeah. His death scene is, like, so funny to me, how he just, like...
It's so quick, and then there's, like, one shot of him where he goes, oh, and then gets stabbed.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when John Travolta gets killed in Broken Arrow, where he's got that, like, the rocket comes, like, right towards him, he just kind of, I don't know.
MJ and I, we're gonna have a hell of a time.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
Where he's, like, trying to stab him, yeah. Those two were just perfectly cast for this movie. And I like that everybody in this movie has some sort of an arc.
Yeah.
Well, the ones that survive, anyway. Because, you know, Peter gets a character arc, MJ gets a character arc, even Harry kind of gets a character arc.
Yeah.
Yes, too. Aunt May, not so much, but, you know.
But it makes sense for, like, an older, sort of wiser person to remain the same.
I do feel kind of bad for Norman, though. I mean, just...
Yeah.
This is why you don't take steroids, kids. And I also didn't feel like the movie was too overdone. or like over the top. Like
Hmm.
it was definitely silly, but it didn't get too silly.
Yeah, it didn't really cross a line into being just outright chaotic and ridiculous.
I think Sam Raimi's good at that, where he's able to like kind of just make the movie feel like, okay, this is just the weird world that they're in,
Yeah.
and it works. And I didn't feel like the drama was too overdone or melodramatic, which
Yeah,
was nice.
It's weird watching a movie that actually has like a pretty solid romance plot for us. I feel like we haven't had that in a while.
Like, it's not, like, amazing, but it works for what it is, you know?
Yeah.
There's some parts which are kind of awkward, but you can kind of just chalk that up to, well, they're teenagers, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad, at least. Now, I do have some cons with this one. Not too many, though, but, like, I have a few. The CGI...
It has not aged well.
No. The part where he's like jumping the roof, I was like, oh wow, that's it's like a video game character.
Yeah,
just
it
running
looks like
across,
it came like right from the PS2 game.
Yeah, and it's especially obvious watching it on like in 1080p on a flat screen.
Yeah,
because I have this movie on Blu-ray, so
yeah, I watched the Disney Plus version.
I didn't know it was on Disney Plus, but
yeah, they like just added it not too long ago.
Oh, fuck Disney. And also some of the shots of him like swinging around. There's some stuff that's just like, yeah, this doesn't. It looks kind of plasticky. It's just kind of, you know, like I'm trying to think of the right word, like synthetic. It looks kind of synthetic now.
Yeah.
I did praise most of the cast, but rewatching this the past few times, I felt like James Franco felt kind of miscast.
A little bit. I can see that. Yeah.
There's a few things though that might be why. Part of it might be hindsight, because well, he's mostly known for comedies. And, well, no, I'm not going to get into that. And it was one of his first movies, so maybe that's why. But he's just kind of weird in this.
Yeah.
For me. I don't know. It's just kind of... Granted, he's really more there just because he's Norman's son, and then he's friends with Peter, and he's MJ's boyfriend, at least for a little bit, anyway.
Yeah.
He's more there just because he has a relationship with these other characters. You know, he knows them. He's kind of just, you know... If I remember right, he does get more interesting in the next two movies, but here
I think he has a bit more character development in 2 and 3, but
definitely in 3, yeah. Here he just kind of felt out of place. It was strange.
And then during sort of the first part of the movie, whenever they're in high school, nobody looks like a high schooler. Everyone looks like they're in their mid to late 20s.
Everybody looks like, I was gonna say that, everybody looks like a college student in this, like in the school scenes. Like, thankfully they do graduate in this, so you can kind of
cut it some slack in the sequels, but
yeah, you can kind of excuse it. They're college students for the rest of the trilogy, but yeah, like some of the school scenes, like some of the teen drama in this just was kind of weird,
Like, the Flash Thompson looks a lot older than a high school student.
Yeah. It sort of felt like you were watching, like, a high school musical movie or something. It just is like, oh my god, none of them are in high school. And, like, what? Are they gonna sing, like, we're all in this together or something? Just like, okay. And another thing, speaking of Flash Thompson, he gets his ass kicked by Peter.
And then
there are there are tons of witnesses to this, and nobody suspects anything from this. They're just like, oh, I guess Peter must be really good at martial arts or something. I don't know. It's just like, okay. What? It was a strange, yeah, some of the high school stuff was kind of weird. I also felt like some of the dialogue was kind of awkward here and there.
Yeah, well, I feel like a lot of it was by design for Peter, because they were trying to make it feel like he's not fitting in.
Some of his quips in this are like, it's you who's out, Gobby, out of your mind. Like, that one, I was like, wow, that's bad.
And again, I can kind of excuse that just because it's Spider-Man's first time trying to be quippy at everybody.
There's also one that's kind of homophobic during the
scene
with
when he's talking to Bonesaw, and he's like,
who made nice that outfit? Your husband or something like that? Like, just, okay. Well...
And that was sort of like a meme thing a couple years ago where people kept making it so Bonesaw would be like,
he actually has a husband. Yeah, I think I heard about that. But there were just a lot of lines. There were lines also that just was like, yeah, this was made in the 2000s. You can tell.
Yeah.
And I guess some of it you're gonna get. He's a teenager, I guess. I guess we'll cut him a little bit of slack. But another thing I was noticing is this one kind of just, when you look at the plot, it does kind of just feel like your conventional, like, origin story now. There's really nothing all that surprising here. When you're really,
that is fair, but I think that might just be because this was sort of a revitalization of superhero movies.
Like, at the time, it was fine. And also, there weren't very many good superhero origin stories at the time. Like, this was one of the first good origin stories we got. So, it does feel... But just watching it again, I was like, okay, it does kind of feel a little been there, done that. You kind of... Whenever I watch, like, a superhero origin story movie, I'm just, like, going, okay, this is great. I kind of want to see them superheroing now,
Yeah, instead of spending, like, an hour.
It was kind of my problem with the first Christopher Reeve Superman movie, where it's, like, although with that one, it was a little bit more of a problem for me, because so much of that movie was the origin story, like... Whereas here, I think it was a little better paced, in that regard, But hey, we would have missed out on Marlon Brando as Jor-El if we hadn't done that.
Yeah. I think that's really all that I had for cons.
Yeah, same here. Were you gonna mention the Nickelback singer getting a song as a con or a pro with this movie?
I'm gonna consider that neutral territory for now. Nickelback has been through enough.
I'll be honest, I actually don't mind that song in particular. I think I actually kind of like that song, but I'm not even like a Nickelback fan either. So, anyway.
Oh, what an early I'm looking at the soundtrack now. What an early 2000s soundtrack. Sum 41, Alien Ant Farm, Nickelback.
Was Blink 182 on the soundtrack?
Sadly, no.
That would really put this in the early 2000s. Or what else was around, like... Was there a Britney Spears song on there? Oh wait, that was Madam Web that did that, not this. Which is really weird. You would think it'd be the other way around.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's confusing about Madam Web. It's like, I think they were gonna have it set in the 90s or something, but then it wasn't, and then they just, I don't know. Anyway. Just think, imagine if this Spider-Man movie had been as bad as Madam Web. We might not have any Spider-Man movies at all after that. So, or imagine if like they made the canon version instead, or that James Cameron one. Things will look very different.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess this is getting into our overall thoughts now. I'd be lying if I said it was a perfect movie. But it is an enjoyable movie. Maybe part of it might be nostalgia, but I do think there's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
I really like Willem Dafoe and Tobey Maguire. They're both very good in this. There's some good action scenes. I think what helps is just that it's very stylistic. It has Sam Raimi's just signature gonzo filmmaking trademarks, and I'm like, okay, I'm fine with that. It's different. It's unique.
Yeah.
They should just do that more. Just give like some weirdo filmmaker just an entire trilogy of superhero movies. Why don't they do that more often?
Because when you do that, it's going to turn out like good old Last Jedi. You're going to give it to Rian Johnson.
Well, okay. The thing with that one was they had 3 different directors with those originally. Yeah. But anyway. I was thinking more of like the Dark Knight trilogy. I thought you were going to mention Zack Snyder there, actually.
Oh, yeah, that probably would have been a better comparison.
It's a silly movie, but it wasn't too silly. Like, it very easily could have gone too over the top, but it never went too far, at least. And we will get to the one that does go a little bit too over the top at some point. It's also a very memorable movie. It seems like every other scene I'd be going, oh, I remember this scene, and I was looking forward to it, too, which, it was nice. It was nice watching a movie where I was actually looking forward to what was going to happen in it.
Are you telling me you didn't feel utter joy and excitement watching Deep Blue Sea 2? You weren't ready? You weren't excited to see what the next scene in that movie?
Only because I knew it would be over soon. So I was happy when it ended, so, and considering the time period when it came out, it's very impressive,
Yeah.
We hadn't had a live-action Spider-Man movie, at least not on this scale anyway. Like, I can think of a couple, there were like some TV movies in like the 70s. I think there was a Japanese one.
Yeah, Spider-Man the Emissary of Hell.
There was that weird Turkish movie where Captain America had to fight Spider-Man, and Spider-Man was a mob boss that killed people for some reason. That was weird.
I feel like we need to give him another Spider-Man movie, whoever directed that one.
Yeah. I always like to joke that was the Spider-Man movie made by J. Jonah Jameson. Because he's a menace. It's a very 2002 movie, but, that's not always a bad thing. It's not the best Spider-Man movie. That's our next podcast, but, I digress. Now you can go. Sorry.
So, I think like I mentioned before, it's just a very fun movie to watch. It's so well cast with Willem Dafoe and Tobey Maguire and J.K. Simmons. The effects haven't aged great, and there's a couple of holes here and there, but overall they don't really take away from the movie all that much. But yeah, I think it's just a very solid origin film, and I'm really excited to actually rewatch the rest of this trilogy.
And it was fun, too. Like, remember when movies were fun? Oh, jeez.
All right, well.
Yeah, someone in the comments is probably going to say, get to Spider-Man 3 already, you jerks. Why are you wasting your time reviewing the Sam Raimi trilogy?
I want you to do the Amazing Spider-Man.
The Amazing Spider-Man is the worst thing since my son.
All right, well, next time we'll be doing, believe it or not, Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, the best Spider-Man movie. Spoiler, so.
Until then, roll the Andy Griffith.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.